What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is David Benjamin from Healthy Wild Free. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you the difference between land or earth mined salts and sea or ocean derived salts. And the reason I created this video is because over the last few months, I've been doing a lot of research on salt and their nutritional value, but also the toxicity or heavy metal contamination in salts. So these are two sides to the coin that both play a role in the value of the salt that we consume. And if we fail to look at one or both of those equations, we could be consuming the wrong salt and it could be damaging our health. So without further ado, let's break down some of the earth-derived salts and kind of talk about these first and talk about the upsides and downsides of these. And then we'll talk about sea salts and the upsides and downsides of that as well. So with earth salts, you have different brands. The main brands of earth-derived salts you see out there are real salt, which is from Redmond, the company Redmond, which is a salt that is derived from a mine in Utah. And then you have Himalayan salts, which are derived from the Himalayan region in the world. And these earth-derived salts are basically salts that are just mined from the earth. And the thing to keep in mind here is that from the research, from the lab results, you have, for example, that real salt that I just showed you has 229 parts per million of lead. It has 39 parts per billion of arsenic and 7.3 parts per billion of cadmium. With Himalayan salt, you have, depending on the brand, because there's so many Himalayan salt brands, anywhere from 100 to 500 or 550 parts per billion of lead, which, by the way, these are really high levels of lead, both in real salt and Himalayan salt. You have 33 parts per billion of arsenic and 1.2 parts per billion of cadmium with Himalayan salt. So these are your earth mined salts. These are the salts that are mined from the earth that are typically used more so locally and have been used more locally in those regions. So we're talking about sort of industrial uses for salt. So using it on the roads or in commercial applications, things like this. Typically earth mined salts have more practical applications within industrial use, not necessarily human consumption or for dietary or culinary purposes. Now, let's move over to the sea salt side of the equation. You have sea salt, and a very popular brand is Celtic sea salt. Now, you may think Celtic sea salt is valuable and beneficial. However, I need to share something with you in my research. And I took a first principles approach in my research, and I started to look at it just from a different lens, from a different perspective. And I recognized that the earth mined salts are much higher in heavy metals than the sea salts that were tested. And this is because, well, think about it. Let's take a first principles approach. Where is arsenic, cadmium, and lead mined? You don't go to the ocean to get those. You go to mines. They're literally mined from the earth. So the salts that are derived from the earth are paired with these heavy metals, and these heavy metals are toxic to our nervous system and are damaging to our health in many various ways. Which is why I said that earth mined salts, such as real salt by Redmond or any Himalayan salt or any other earth mined salt, is more problematic because it is a salt that is going to be more bound with heavy metals, which are also mined from the earth. So there's more of a pairing there. Now, moving on to the brand Celtic salt, you would think that some sea salts are better. However, Celtic salt and any Celtic salt, not just this brand from Selena Natural, but any other Celtic salt brand that uses the traditional Celtic process for salt is not going to be as healthy as well. And the reason for that is because Celtic salt has, believe it or not, 662 parts per billion of lead in it. This is extremely high. It's the highest heavy metal in any salt tested, and especially lead. And this is 12,520% higher than the recommended safe amount. So that is a huge red flag. And the reason for that is because Celtic salt, even though it's mined from the sea, what they do is they take it and they lay it out on these clay beds. And guess what that clay happens to be high in? You guessed it, lead. So this lead that they have traditionally used for many, many years in this, I think it's off the coast of France, and the traditional Celtic way of harvesting and drying salt, this clay happens to be high in this lead. So they take something that's pure from the sea and then they contaminate it because it's a natural process, and then they sell it to you. So Celtic salt is also worth avoiding, unfortunately. Now, let's break down an additional factor here that I haven't discussed yet. You have the heavy metal contamination, more so with the earth mine salts, and less heavy metal contamination with the sea salts, unless Celtic-based salts are using their clay-based methods, which is introducing an earth element which has heavy metals in it. So off the bat, right off the jump, we have earth-based salts or earth mine salts that have more heavy metals and sea salts that have less heavy metals. So earth mine salts are less healthy because they have more heavy metals, and sea salts are healthier because they have less heavy metals. Now let's move on to the mineral part of the equation. This is really interesting, and I took a first principles approach here as well. Land-based salts are higher in iron and copper. And guess what? Humans, although we do need iron and copper are minerals that we can have toxicity in. In other words, they are common forms of toxicity, where if we have too much iron or too much copper, it leads to toxicity and it leads to health challenges in our body. Now let's look at the sea salt side of the equation. With sea salt, we have magnesium, potassium, sodium, even boron, which helps magnesium absorption and vitamin D absorption and vitamin K2 absorption, and lithium, which is great for brain health. These are all rich minerals that, guess what? We as humans tend to be deficient in, meaning we need more of them coming from sea salts. So we've looked at both sides of the equation here. We've looked at the heavy metal portion of the equation. With heavy metals, earth mined salts are far less healthy than sea salts. And then we've looked at the mineral form of the equation here. And earth mined salts are higher in the higher not only in the metals, but in the minerals that we tend to have too much of these minerals in, and we have toxicity in them because we have too many. And then the minerals composition of sea salts, we have minerals within the sea salts that we are deficient in that we need more of. So what's the answer to this equation? Which salt is healthier? Is it the earth salts or is it the sea salts? Well, by far, by a long shot, sea salts are far healthier for you, not only because of the lower heavy metal contamination, but the higher level of minerals and the necessary minerals that you need as a human being to stay healthy, to stay hydrated, to support your nervous system, your heart health, and so much more. We're talking magnesium, potassium, calcium, boron, and lithium once again. So with that being said, my favorite sea salt brand is a company called Ava Jane's. I'll put a link to this below with any sales or discounts that they have. And the reason I love this brand is because from the lab tests, there were 0 traces of heavy metals. That's right, non-detectable heavy metals. We're talking no lead, no arsenic, no cadmium, no mercury. By the way, none of these salts had levels of mercury, thankfully. But this had no mercury, no lead, no cadmium, and no arsenic. And it has no microplastics. And it's harvested from a region, I believe it's Cayuta. It's off the coast of Mexico. And it's a very low industrial region. So there's very little pollution or industrial contamination. And it's hand harvested and sun dried. So it's a very traditional practice, and it retains its moisture a little bit. So it retains even more minerals in doing that. The more they draw out the salt, the more minerals lost that the salt occurs or has. So I love this salt because it retains more minerals, it has a little bit of moisture, there's no heavy metals, and there's no microplastics. So it's quite literally the healthiest salt I could find from all of the lab tests and all of the research that I've done. So check out Ava Jane's salt. I'll link it up right below this video. It's my favorite sea salt. It tastes delicious. It adds a ton of flavor to dishes I cook every single day. I use it on salt, beef, fish, and so much more. You're gonna love it. And you can just add it to your water and add it to any other culinary you need as well. So check that out below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to Healthy Wild Free. I'm gonna be creating a lot more videos on health and wellness education. So subscribe below, leave a like, a comment, and a share, and I'll see you in the next video. Make sure to live healthy, wild free. Cheers.